Hi everyone, and welcome back to Waterhouse Ford. It's been a few weeks since we did much on the Ferguson. We've been busy with a bunch of other projects around the property, which I'm not filming, and it's not really something that we wanted to cover on the channel. But if you are interested, I might put a link in the description of our video here for our Instagram channel, or my Instagram page, where I'm posting a couple of photos about the projects that we're doing. So if you're interested, you can always follow me there and see what else we're up to. But today it's pouring with rain outside, and we're not really going to be able to carry on with the shed extension, which is the current project, because obviously that's working outside, and I'm a bit of a fair weather chap myself. So I thought I'd come back into the workshop today and start having a look at the clutch. Got the clutch here on the bench as it came from Anglo Agri Parts, and what I thought I'd do is basically just open it up, have a look at it, essentially just familiarize myself with it. So that'll be the first part of the video. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a let's see how we go type of video today. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to find. For example, I don't have the release bearing, I don't have the pilot bearing. I'm kind of hoping that they're in the kit, in the clutch kit. If not, then we won't be able to go quite as far today, because I'll have to order those separately. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. Follow along, let's see how we get on. I may need to do a little bit of editing. I may even need to sort of wait a week and then continue filming. We'll just have to see how it works out. But I thought I'd do it anyway, seeing as it's raining outside, can't do much out there. May as well come into the workshop and get some progress. Right, let's crack on and see how we go. Okay, so what we've got here is the clutch kit, which comes obviously from Anglo. The part number is A68358, and that's for the Ferguson TE20. I believe it's the same for all of the TE range, sorry, all of the 20 range. So right, so I'm going to open this up and see what we've got inside, and we'll just talk a little bit about it. As I said, I'm kind of hoping that at least the pilot bearing, if not the release bearing, are in here in the kit as well, but I don't actually know. So okay, I've got the camera off a little bit to the side today, just to help to give me a bit of space to work with all of this. So the first thing we find there is the pressure plate. That looks quite good. Just checking the rivets, they're all tight and they're all well seated. These rivets as well, you want to make sure that those are all nice and firm. Yeah, so that looks good. Okay, we'll put that to one side. Aha, I see we have a release bearing. That's great news. So we can get that done. What else have we got? Aha, and the pilot bearing. Great. Well, that's really good news. I was concerned that they may not be in the kit, and then I'd have to order them separately, but they are. Right, and then we've got the sorry, I called this the pressure plate. This is the friction plate, sorry. And then here we have the pressure plate. It's all very nicely packaged, which is good. Okay, get rid of this box and all the packaging. Okay, now this is the, I suppose the main part of the clutch really, and again, nicely packaged. And there's your pressure plate, which is beautifully machined. That looks really nice, and obviously the friction plate runs against that. Now, what they've not given you in the kit is the alignment tool, so we'll have to make one of those, but those are easy. It's easy enough to do. Basically, what you do, you take the inside diameter of your pilot bearing, and you have a rod that comes. If I hold this up, you basically you need to have a rod that's long enough to go through here, through your friction plate, and the first diameter needs to be the exact diameter of this inside of the friction plate, so that it holds that in the center. So if you can imagine that rod's coming up, it's holding that in the center, and then at the top it needs to sit inside the pilot bearing, so you know then that everything is aligned before you start tightening down your pressure plate. There is, I mean, I've done it myself before, where you basically just eyeball it, you get it as straight as you can, and then you rely on the output shaft to line it up, but that's not the best way to do it. Once you've tightened these bolts that are on here, everything's under pressure, and it makes it really difficult to get everything lined up. So the best thing to do is to use an alignment tool. So we'll work on that. But yeah, so far I'm happy with all of that. That all looks good. All looks to be very good quality, as you'd expect from Anglo, and certainly happy with that. So we'll just wrap that up again, because we're not going to be using that immediately. Keep that nice. Push that to the back of the bench. And kind of the same with the friction plate at the moment, although I do want to measure that internal diameter, and then I can get started, or offline I can get started on making an alignment tool. But actually, looking at this, I'm wondering, maybe for today's video we'll just go through replacing the release bearing, which is actually on the tractor. Obviously that sits around the input shaft to the gearbox, output shaft on the, well, it's the input shaft on the gearbox. So maybe we'll get that done today, and then maybe also just get the engine off of the engine cranes, the engine stand, and onto the engine crane, and then get it set up on some engine stand, on some axle stands, so that we can get working on the clutch itself, maybe in the next video. So yeah, I think that's the plan for today. Okay, we're over at the bell housing now. Now you can see we've not actually even cleaned this out properly yet, but there's your release bearing. That one feels a little bit loose, but I mean, it would be serviceable, and if I was doing this job, shall we say, on the cheap, then I would consider leaving it, but that's not what we're doing at all. So, but because it actually, no, I probably wouldn't keep that actually. I wouldn't reuse that one. Anyway, so that's what we've got to get off. Now, from what I can see, it's held on by two big springs. There's a carrier, it's held onto a carrier. I believe if we remove those two big springs, we can slide the carrier off, and then the bearing can be pushed off or pressed off of the carrier. So that looks like a relatively easy job. But whilst I'm here, I thought I'm certainly going to give this a good clean out. It's not massively dirty, just a little bit of dust and stuff in the bottom, a little bit of oil, but we'll get all that cleaned out. And then looking at the back, we'll see the seal coming basically for the input shaft to the gearbox, and there's also another shaft end at the bottom, which we'll have a look at that. From what I can see, neither of them are leaking, so I'm probably not going to touch them at this stage. And the reason for that is that although we are restoring this whole tractor, the gearbox is not something that we've decided not to go into the gearbox. And the reason for that is because the chap that I bought this tractor from told us that he had completely redone the gearbox. Now, we don't know if that's 100% correct, but more importantly, we've never driven this tractor and we have no idea what state the gearbox is in. And the idea at the moment is that we're going to leave it. We're going to finish off the engine and basically finish off the rest of the tractor, and then we will see. If we find that we need to do anything on the gearbox, I'm hoping that most of anything that we might be able to do would be able to be done with the gearbox in situ. And worst case, if we have to split the tractor in order to get to the gearbox, it's a relatively easy split to do. So yeah, we're taking a little bit of a chance on that, but that's the logic. Anyway, bottom line is we're going to get started, get this carrier off. We'll give everything a bit of a clean. We'll check the bushes on both of these shafts just to make sure that they're okay. If there's anything dodgy about them, then we may pull those out and get those bushes sorted. But they generally are okay. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so as I said, there's these two springs at the back here. We just grab that with a pair of pliers and slide that off. That comes out quite easily. And then we've got another one on this side. So again, we'll just pull that off, and that is really quite easy. Now you can see that carrier now comes straight off. So where am I? There. Just get this camera to focus. There we go. So you can see now this is the carrier and this is the bearing. We'll take that over to the press and we'll pop that out and get the new one on. But that looks, now what we're looking for is sort of wear marks over here on the carrier, and that really doesn't look too bad at all. It actually looks pretty good. Very good, in fact. So happy about that. Now similarly at the back here, let's see if I can get the camera to focus again. Hopefully that's worked. So you've got the wear points here and here, and they are little lobes basically, and those both look very good. Now if we do need to take it out, there's at the top here there's two castellated nuts with a split pin through each of them. You take those off, and then you've got your clutch pedal on the side here. You've got to take that off, and then the shaft slides out. So we'll check those in a minute. And then this is the brake shaft, and we actually did check that before when we were doing the brakes, and that actually seemed fine. There's a little bit of give in that, but you want that, right? You don't want it to be too tight. Let's have a quick look at the. See, this surface here is also lovely. The one that the carrier runs on, that looks really good. No obvious signs of wear. You can still see the original machining marks, which is fantastic. So very happy about that. I'll just go around and just check the clutch shaft bushes. Okay, so what we want to do here is have a look at the clutch. This is the clutch pedal. That's feels quite stiff actually. It's probably just from not being used. It's sort of freeing up as I'm working it.
But there's absolutely no movement in those bushes whatsoever. You know, I can't feel any play in that shaft at all. I think I would want that to be a little looser, to be honest. Interestingly, there's no greasing points on that. So it's obviously a dry bush. Yeah, so I may have a look at that and see if there's a way that I could free it up. I'm wondering if I remove this knuckle on the end here, you can't see on the camera, but basically where the shaft, where the clutch lever connects to the shaft, I might remove that and just see if I can. I'm wondering if that's actually rubbing up against the body of the tractor and causing that friction rather than the shaft itself. But the problem with doing that is, as soon as you do that, you upset the setting. Let me bring the camera around. Okay, so you can see here, this is the clutch lever, clutch pedal, and it connects onto the shaft going through. And yeah, as I say, as soon as you loosen that, you upset this setting. So you can set. You see, the shaft has a square head on it, and the idea is that that's where you set your play on the clutch pedal. On the pedal. So we may end up having to set that anyway, because obviously you're putting a new clutch in here. But I kind of didn't want to lose that particular setting. I could mark it so I know exactly where it was. That way you're not a million miles away. So I probably will just do that. Actually thinking about it, loosen this up, and just make sure that shaft is as loose as possible. So that there's nothing untoward going on inside there. So yeah, I'll crack on with that, and we'll see how we get on. Okay, so we've got a mark on the shaft and a mark on the yoke. Alright, let's get this yoke off. Okay. Looks like a washer behind there. It's a very soft washer, whatever it is. There we go. Get that flattened out again. It's actually aluminium. Yeah, that shaft is way too tight. Okay, so we'll get that out. Okay, so the next job we'll need to do is to get these bolts off. So there's, as I said, 2 castellated nuts, and it looks like I'm not sure what sort of head that is, but anyway. So to help make this a bit easier, I might try and turn the shaft as much as I can towards me. Oh, that's as far as it'll go. And try and get these split pins out. I'm afraid you probably won't be able to see too well what's going on in here, but so I'll try and explain. But basically, as I said, 2 castellated nuts Just trying to get the split pin out. There we go. And I believe it's a 7/16. Yeah. So that can come out now. Okay, and then we'll have to see. There's no washer or anything. Right, let's get the other one off. Can't see where the other leg is on that one. Let's try and... The interesting thing is that that's not actually very well in the castellation either, that split pin. There we go. Wow, that was harder than it should have been. Okay, so now if we can turn the shaft towards us, hopefully we can get those bolts out of there. Doesn't want to turn very much. Okay, I had to get a pipe on it, but I did eventually get that to turn. So now you can see that bolt can come out straight out, which is good. And that one, I need to just tap it a bit, which it doesn't want to do now. Unless I can do it like this. There we go. Right. So that's out. So you just have one, hopefully you can see it here, that's actually got a flat edge cut on it to allow it to come past this, I assume. Right, now we want to make sure that this is loose on the shaft, so that that's not going to stop the shaft from coming out. So we can see that's nice and loose, so that's good. Now, I believe the shaft has to go out that way, but I need to just double check. Make sure there's no shoulder on it in there. If there's a shoulder in there, then it's got to come out this way. So we'll just check, and then I need to get set up for that as well. So we'll come back. Okay, so the easiest way to check is we'll measure the diameter of the shaft inside the bell housing and then outside, and that will tell us whether it's got any sort of shoulder on it. So if we measure it here, we've got 25.3 millimeters. Just double check it's no different on this side. Yeah, 25.3. And then we measure on the outside. And that's 25.4. So that says that it seems to me that it can go either way. So I think I'm going to try and push it out that way first and see how we go. If that doesn't work, then we'll go the other way, but I think it's going to go this way. Now I've got a soft, it's basically aluminium drift to put on the end of the shaft here. And that is extremely solid. What I might try and do is turn it a little bit more and see if we can get it to loosen up a bit. Put a little bit of lubrication on. See if we can get that to work in. So I've got that now roughly where it was before we started in terms of positioning. We can see some junk coming out of that bush there. I'm going to try some heat. I won't film all this. I'm going to I'll loosen it all up and then I'll come back when it's done. Okay, put a bit of heat on it, put a bit of oil on it, and it started to go, so I thought I'd stop filming again, but get in there. You can see on this side the bush is actually starting to come out with it. Okay, so you can see the bush there. This is all very hot, so I won't touch it, but there's your bush. Obviously that's the shaft. We need to move this all over and try and pull this off now. And there we go. There's the shaft. Right, we'll let that cool down, we'll get that cleaned up, and we'll check out those bushes and work out why it was so stiff. But inevitably we'll probably end up replacing those bushes, if assuming I can get hold of them. Okay, well that's that for now. I'll get that all cleaned up and then I'll come back. The other thing we'll do today on today's video is we'll get that release bearing put onto, we'll take the old one off the carrier, put the new one on. I'll look into these bushes and then depending on how things go I'll either tack that onto the end, well I'll either continue this video or we'll leave this video here and do another follow-up video once we've got the replacement bushes. Okay, let's get this bearing off this carrier. So quite straightforward. We've got a socket that fits nicely, and then you'll notice the carrier has these two flanges. Obviously that's where the springs go, and you can see the wearing parts there. So we just want to make sure that those sit to the side, and that is now supported. Now obviously that means it's only supported on two sides, but there's nothing else you can do about that. We'll get that nicely in the center, and that should press straight out. It shouldn't be difficult. There it goes, and it's out. If you've got a press like this, always put a piece of wood at the bottom, because inevitably stuff falls out, and it's better for it to land on the wood than on the concrete floor. But basically there's the old bearing. We can tell that that's quite severely damaged. You can see how that inner race is wiggling inside there. That's no good. I mean, it would have still been working, and at worst it probably would have just been a little bit noisy. But anyway, while we're here, of course we must replace it. So this carrier looks to be in good condition. Just needs a little clean. It's got a little bit of oil on it, but nothing too serious. So yeah, we'll get the new one on, get this cleaned up, and then get the new one on, and we'll go from there. Okay, I've cleaned up this shaft. I just wanted to show you before I go any further, but I don't think the issue is bushes. If you see on the shaft, there's like it's essentially a varnish that develops, and it develops primarily because, well, essentially from old age, and it's probably grease or oil or something that's got in there, and oh, camera, come on. Maybe go back a bit. Yeah, and it basically varnishes up, and I think that if you look at the other side as well, you can see the same sort of thing. And what it means is that this shaft is actually thicker here than it is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it in the lathe quickly, and just polish it up to see if I can get that varnish off. Not with any cutting tool or anything like that, but basically just polish it. See if I can get that sorted out. And then what we'll do is we'll check it in the bushes, and if it's okay, then we'll carry on. Otherwise, if I feel that the bushes need replacing, then of course we will do that. But I just wanted to show you that shaft before I go ahead and start cleaning it. Okay. Right, look up. I've now cleaned up the shaft. Hopefully you can see this. I'll try and get the camera to actually focus on it. There we go. Now, hopefully you can see how much cleaner and smoother that is. Obviously you can still see the black marks, but it is, yeah, if I run my fingernail over that, there's absolutely no humps or bumps, and it's the same on the other side. Again, it's exactly the same. There's a little bit of a ridge over there, which is obviously a bit of wear, and there, but this is now perfectly smooth, and it's not standing proud of the rest of the shaft. So what I want to do now is I put that bush back in. I cleaned it up and I put it back in. What I want to do now, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on those bushes. I'm then going to slide the shaft in and see how much play we've got, if any. And hopefully we won't have too much. A little bit of oil on that one. And a little bit of oil on this one. Spread it around. Okay, lovely. Right, now hopefully the shaft will go in. Oh, that feels good. Lovely. Goes all the way in, and it turns nice and freely. So that was our problem. Now I'm feeling a little bit of a hump, so there's a half spot on something somewhere, but if we put the shaft back so it was roughly there. Okay, now let's see if we got any play in the bush. Right, so that side is nice and firm. Oh, so this side is definitely play. And I mean, it's interesting because that's the side where actually the shaft is a little bit more worn, and I suppose it's over the years, it's obviously the lever, the pedal is on this side, so this side is actually taking a lot more force than the other side. The other side is basically idling, and this side is where the force is coming. It's not bad enough to warrant. It's not like a have to change the bushes. It's certainly serviceable. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to research whether these bushes are readily available or not. If they are, then I think I'm just going to replace them anyway, seeing as we're here now. If they're not readily available, then as I say, that one is actually still serviceable. I'm going to move the camera to the side so you can see the play from the side. Okay, there's the shaft. And hopefully you can see, I'm getting myself in the light here. Hang on. There's the play there. It's about a millimetre of movement. Like I say, if those bushes are readily available, then it's definitely a good idea to replace them. If not, then it'll work. But better to replace them if we can. Okay, I think to finish off this video, I'll just show you. I've now pressed the new bearing, release bearing, onto the carrier, and you can see now that's nice and firm. There's absolutely no play in there. It's a little stiff to turn. I think that's probably the grease inside. Obviously it's a sealed bearing, there's no way you can get grease in there, but there's evidence of it being greased, if you see what I mean. I think that probably just needs a bit of work. It turns, and it turns smoothly. There's no crunches or grinds or anything silly like that, but yeah, so that's now been pressed on. It's worth noting that this inner flange sits slightly proud of this running face. So when you're doing yours, don't be fooled in thinking that once that's level, that's all the way in. If you look at the back, you'll notice that it's not all the way in, and you need to press it all the way in, so that lip, or that inner carrier, stands slightly proud of this wearing face. So that's good. This one's now been cleaned up, that's ready to go back on. No real issues with this. You can see the wear marks there, but there's no burrs, there's no dishes or anything silly like that. Those are actually lovely and smooth. So that's ready to go back on. Yeah, and I think that's probably it for today. I'm going to get the bell housing all nicely cleaned up now, so that's ready. But I think the main thing now really is to see if I can get those bushes, and if I can, then we'll replace those quickly, and then we'll pop this all back together again. If I have time today, in fact I won't have time today, but the next job really will be to get the engine off of the engine stand and start working on the clutch, getting that all set up. So that'll be the next video. Alright everyone, listen, I hope you have a great week, and thanks for joining us again. And again, small steps, we're getting there, slow but sure progress, and yeah, hopefully it won't be too long now. Have a great week everybody, cheers for now.